Good to see all of you. I'm keeping this water here because I'm going to go ahead and self-disclose that I stole a cookie in the back already. Miss Ardith made some shortbread cookies that are to die for, but I've needed to. I'm afraid I'm going to choke at some point. It was so delicious, so I shouldn't have done that, but I'm going to keep my water close by. Well, if you didn't get one of these, raise your hand. We can get you one. I made a little handout for tonight. I thought it might be helpful for those who like to take notes, and if you don't, I just put some things on there that might be fun to refer to later in the week if you need it, or in those times where you need just a little bit of bravery. Come on in. We'd love to have you. Come on in. When I was asked to speak about a month ago, Paula was saying, what do you think your topic would be? I was like, well, I don't know. I need to think on that. And what kept coming to my mind was the word brave. And I'm at this weird time in my life right now where I feel like I need to be brave about a few things. And so it seemed like every time I turned around, the word brave was popping either in my head or in a song or on a bumper sticker or in some type of quote I was reading. And I thought, this has got to be it, right? I've prayed and prayed, and I'm hearing brave and brave. And I have a heart for women. I've worked around. I've been in the oil and gas corporate world for my whole career, actually, and usually been the only female at the table. And so I have a heart for females and women, and just helping them be courageous and bold, because I have to continue to tell myself to do the same thing. So tonight we're going to talk about being brave and what that means to us, and how we can do that. Because there's going to be, everybody's brave in different situations, right? There's some smaller situations where you think, I'm a little nervous, I've got a speech tonight. There may be really difficult situations where you're having to care for someone, or you're going through something super difficult. This is for you. This is about being brave in all of those times, right? I love this topic because really, when I look back, I wasn't a really brave little girl. I have two sisters who are younger. I was the oldest. I was supposed to be the bravest. I really wasn't. I remember every time my mom would send me in the store, I'd always take my middle sister, Carrie, because she had fiery red hair. She was in charge, and she always knew what to do. I was like, okay, I'm taking Carrie with me, and she'll ask the people. I don't have to talk to them. She was the brave one of all of us. But I've noticed that as I've gotten older and had different experiences, that I've become more brave as it goes. And I don't know that it's because I've had certain experiences as much as I think I've got a little bit better foundation in Jesus. And I think that's what's bringing me through and helping me to be more brave than I've been in the past. I think as I get older, I'm maturing in my faith. I'm learning more. I'm wanting to learn more. And I think that's helping me along the way. So we're going to take a look at a few things today. I'm going to give you a few tips that I think you can remember pretty easily, and that when you're feeling a little bit nervous and anxious or in one of those situations where you need a little bit of help, you can pull those out. So let's see. So what do you think about when you hear the word brave? What are some words that come to mind? Anyone, just shout them out. Courageous. Strong. Fearless. Bold. I love it. Yes. All of those are great words to describe. Bold, courageous, fearless. There's a lot of brave people in this world. If you think about brave people, who are some people that come to mind? Who would you say if you shouted some folks out? Firemen, soldiers. Perfect. Rosa Parks. Perfect. Who else? Police officers. Yes. Really, really brave souls that did. All of those are people that did pretty big things, right? Moms. Amen to that, sister. I don't know if you're a mom, but holy smokes, yeah. There's a lot of brave people, and typically when we think about brave, we think of those bigger occupations or bigger things, right? How many of you in this room, I'm curious, feel like you're brave? Show of hands. Who feels like they're brave? We've got a few, right? Yeah. I think we don't realize it sometimes, but we're braver than we think. And sometimes it's just going through some of those difficult times or reminding yourself that you really are brave and you can do it is what you need. So we're going to do that tonight. But there are some really great brave women in history too, because a lot of times I hear bravery associated with men. Because when I was researching the topic, I was kind of looking all over and reading a bunch of different things. And usually men came to mind first, which just made me mad because I was like, are you kidding me? They couldn't do anything like we do it, right? I mean, Us super moms, we got it all. I mean, we're working, we're doing some kids stuff. They don't remember when the teachers' birthdays are and what the lunch is for the day or whatever. I mean, we got to do a lot of stuff, and with grace, right, and style. So, Rosa Parks, someone said that. Amelia Earhart, can you imagine that? How brave she had to be. Florence Nightingale, Susan B. Anthony. Those are some big women in history. They have changed history, which is awesome. So, one thing, when you think about bravery, you can think about big things, but you can also think about little things. And as I was studying, I ran across a question that said, what is the bravest thing God has ever asked you to do? I thought it's a good question. And I've put on this little handout some questions that you can ask yourself, but that was one of the questions. What's the bravest thing God has ever asked you to do? I want you all just to think about that for just a few seconds. Maybe, yeah. Yep. Yep, fighting cancer, that's huge. Anybody else want to share? You don't have to. It may be super personal, but if you want to share something you've done super brave. Yes, ma'am.
Leave an abusive marriage and have to go years through courts.
Whoa, that is brave. That's brave. Anybody else? Awesome.
Little black dress.
Little black dress. It's brave, right? It's brave. And it can be something, it can be on the spectrum, right? Could be I had to take a massive test, or I had to compete in a competition where I was unsure, or it's just when you're feeling anxious and a little bit like, I don't know if I can do it. You've got to be brave. And every one of us has had that time in our life, big or small, or combination thereof, or all of those things. We've all been brave. So, okay, I've spent a lot of time, I mentioned, in the corporate world and working with lots of men. I've had to be super brave a lot of times. So I remember when one time way back earlier in my career, I was having to give a big speech, and it was my first time to speak in front of all of these women at Williams companies. I was in charge of the women's resource group, and there were hundreds of women that were coming to this thing, and I can't even remember the topic I was speaking of. I was super nervous because all of the vice presidents were going to be there and see you, and you thought you wanted to do your best. And I remember that day putting on a dress in the morning, and my daughter, Kennedy, at the time was probably 4 or 5 years old. And so she said to me, Mom, why are you putting on your hoses? She called them hoses, plural. It was one pair of hose. I wouldn't put on two, but at the time you wore hose. And I said, well, I've got a big meeting today, Kennedy, and I'm speaking to all these women, and I want to do a great job. I want to look really professional and do a great job. And she told me looked right up at me with her big brown eyes and said, Mom, don't worry. You just speak with confidence. I thought, what in the world? Where did she hear that? But it was the best advice, and I've given that to so many women as we've been throughout the years, and I thought that was one day I had to be brave, and my little 4 or 5-year-old told me at the time, don't worry, Mom, just speak with confidence. And so I've always given that to my girls as they've had to grow up, or even women that I work with, if they're going into a presentation, I was like, just smile and speak with confidence. Just do the very best that you can. So that was one bravery story, but I remember also just another bravery story as I was working at Citgo Petroleum early in my career. I went back to school at night to get my MBA at TU, and I remember having to study and just being exhausted. You guys have all been there, just totally exhausted, and you're thinking, can I even get through this test? I remember just shaking on my way to the exams because I didn't have too much coffee in your system, not enough sleep, all of that, and I'd always call my mother. It never failed because she was always my one. I'd do a lot of prayer, and then I'd call my mama, and I'd always say, Mom, she'd say, are you on your way to your test? I'd say, yes, I need the pep talk, and she'd go, okay, are you ready? I'd say, yes, and she'd say, they can't line you up and shoot you. That's what she always said. I was like, okay, great. And then she said, it's time to get your big girl pants on and get in the game. I was like, okay, Mom. That was our big pep talk as we got brave. So it's funny how the stories change as you go. But my point here is that you've got to be brave in big and small situations. And no matter what it is, we've got to rely on that. So one thing we know for sure is that life's going to be full of challenges and opportunities for all kinds of craziness, as we have seen the past year especially. This is one year where we've all had to be super brave. Most of us have that natural reaction, as you've probably read in books, is fight or flight. And you can choose to run away from it or you can fight it head on. And what we're going to talk about today is fighting it head on and being super brave about it. When I looked in the dictionary, the definition of brave, the adjective was ready to face and endure danger or pain, showing courage. A verb was to endure or face unpleasant conditions or behavior without showing fear. Pretty big definition for brave. So today I'm going to show you, I've kind of boiled it down to what I think are 4 pretty important points. Not rocket science, things that we already know to do, but to apply when you think about, I need to be brave today. So I did some more research, and when you think about brave people in the Bible, a lot of men come to mind, but there's a lot of really super brave women in the Bible also. Can anyone think of a couple that you like, or Mary, Deborah? Yeah, Deborah, Ruth. Yes, we have our own Ruth that's super brave. Yes. Yeah, Esther. Yeah, in fact, those are the ones I grabbed. Deborah was a great one, right? She was a female military leader in the Bible. And you think, holy smokes, you talk about having to be brave. So she was both a prophet and a judge, and a strong and brave leader over all of Israel. So before Israel had kings, judges were the top leaders in Israel. So judges were primarily military leaders sent by God to rescue Israel from foreign armies. But because she was a prophet too, she also held court and judged between the people as Moses had done. Anyway, it has a lot about her, but she was strong, brave, wise, faithful to God, and Israel enjoyed peace under her reign for 40 years. Can you imagine how tough she had to be? How brave she had to be? Man, I just can't even imagine. Deborah, great example. Someone said Esther, super brave and strong queen who saved the entire nation of Israel. She was full of courage, was the one who foiled a plot. Let's see here. No one, even the queen, talked to the king without being invited, and she was brave enough to go speak to him and foil the plan. So she showed herself to be brave and strong in the great face of danger, and she trusted God and followed his calling on her life. Trusted God, so important. Ruth, we mentioned Ruth. We also have a Ruth in our presence. Ruth is very brave and strong too. This Ruth also was loyal to Naomi and trusting of God. She was humble and kind and bold and strong in the way. A lot of times we hear women to be bold and strong. Sometimes they're mean. That is not true in the least little bit. You can still be kind and be firm. I've had to do that my whole career. They've thought I was too nice until they got into a meeting negotiation with me, and then they went down. So anyway. But Ruth was she was a great one too. She humbled herself, and Boaz offered to marry. She offered to marry him, and she took care of. She was loyal to Naomi. She trusted God. She was kind and bold and took care. But she was another great, brave person, brave lady in the Bible. We talk about Martha. Martha appears in the Bible 3 times. She lived in Bethany with her brother Lazarus. We heard a song about Lazarus, and that he fell seriously ill and he passed away. And she went and asked for Jesus to come and said, "If you would have been here, he would have survived." But then said, "But I know even now God's going to give you that strength to raise him from the dead." And so she knew, even though he wasn't there at the time, she'd get him back, and he could do it. She trusted him and knew that would happen. And of course, we have Mary. I mean, it doesn't get any better than Mary, right, in the Bible. She's amazing. So there's a lot of super brave women in the Bible. And as I thought about what are 4 characteristics that they had and that we can have as women to stay brave, the first one, and probably the 4 common themes, the first one is they called on God. That was the very first thing they did. When they were in need, they called on God. They reached out and said, I need some help. In fact, James 1:5 says, if you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. It's telling us, ask God. When you need it, you ask God. I remember all of these women, they cried out and they prayed to God. My dad passed away suddenly when I was in college. And I remember being so devastated to the point where I think it was during the summertime, and I had one more semester left of college to graduate as a college senior, and I didn't know if I was going to go back to school. And how foolish, looking back, would that have been? My dad wouldn't have wanted me to quit. He was a college professor, for goodness sakes. But I was so devastated. But I just went through some time, and it took me some time. And I felt like when I went back to school that semester, I had to be brave. I felt like I was going back for the first time. I felt like I didn't have the foundation that I had before. But when I think about brave, I felt like I had to be brave for me and my sisters who were younger, just to keep us going. But I cried out and I prayed. I prayed a lot that summer, and that's what got me through it. But I tell you about these times because everybody has different times in their life that face different examples of having to be brave. But that was one time I had to dig deep. It was logical that I go back to school, but at the same time, it didn't feel like that was time for me. But I had to dig deep, and I reached out to friends and family, too, that helped, too. So anytime you're going through that, reach out to God, and then surround yourself with women. I think you'll see on this form, one of the things I mention is I ask, who's on your personal board of directors? If you don't have a personal board of directors, a group of women and or men that are close to you that you can call and ask, you need to get one. You need to look for people that you trust and feel like you look up to or can give you good advice or you can rely on or hold you accountable. Those need to be your board of directors. And everybody needs one of those. And they can be men and women. But that's something that I think everyone, look around the room, there may be women in here that you could put on your board of directors. It'd be awesome. So the first one is they called on God. So that's your very first thing. We all do that, right? I remember there was one night, Kennedy, my middle one, she was accident prone. And so we spent a lot of time in the hospital for various reasons. But there was one night where I'd picked her up from school, and they said, she's been crying all afternoon. We don't know what's wrong. And I look at her, her jaw's just hanging down. Like her jaw had become disconnected. And I thought, goodness gracious, she was 2 years old. And so I was like, oh, goodness. So we call, emergency dentist thinking they can do something. We go to the dentist. He's like, she's going to have to go to the ER. We go to one ER. They're like, we can't help her. They keep putting her under and bringing her out, trying to anyway, it's not working out. We end up at another ER and in the children's hospital. They finally check her in. And I remember I feel like I was pregnant then. I don't know. Anyway, it wasn't a good night. But the whole night was bad. But I remember at one point feeling so desperate because they said, we may have to fly her down to Dallas for someone who specializes in this type of procedure to put her jaw back in. They couldn't wire it shut because she was so tiny. And I remember just falling on my knees in the emergency room and praying to God, Lord, please help us. I don't even know what it is. Just help us, whatever it takes. And we ended up getting in the children's hospital, and they found a hotshot dentist that could wire just the back part. And we ended up working it out, but being in the hospital for several days. But I remember a lot of times when we hit those times, that needs to be our reaction, right? We need to fall on our knees, and we need to reach out. So we need to call on God. Number 2 is they called on God, but really a major part of this is that we've got to trust and obey, right? We've got to trust and obey what he's telling us to do. So we can call on him all we want, and he can be telling us all kinds of stuff, but unless we trust and obey, it's not really going to work out for us. So James 1:6 goes on to say, but when you ask and you pray, you have to believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave on the sea blown and tossed by the wind. So he's telling you, it's okay to reach out, I'm going to answer you, but when I tell you something, I want you to believe me. I want you to trust in me. I think it's super hard to do that. I think this is the hardest part of being brave, is trusting. And many of you know me, and about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I went in for a routine physical. It was super aggressive, and the next thing I knew, I was in 12 months of chemo and hairless for a long time. And I remember writing on every chemotherapy one, God's got this. Because when we heard about it, my husband and I prayed. We cried a little, but we prayed a lot. And we said, this is in his hands. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. We're going to just follow the doctor's orders. We're going to do what we can, and we're going to pray like crazy. And everyone in this church prayed and rallied around, and to God be the glory. This is the hardest part. When the going gets tough, we've got to trust him. Many of you also know that I work for an oil company. We merged with a larger oil company in Oklahoma City earlier this year. So I'm at the senior level, and I was not going to move to Oklahoma City. So in March, I was done with my position. Now, I've worked since I was 15 years old, and always worked. I've never had a summer off or anything. And I was a little bit lost, I'm going to admit, at first. That was really my thing. I love to work. I think I'm a better mom because I work too. I think my kids would agree. But, I really had to take a step back, and it's taken me several months to kind of realize I'm not my job. That's not who I am. And I have a lot to give to a great company. I've just got to figure out what that is. Well, before the merger happened, when we announced it, it was like last November, I had several companies call me and said, hey, we'd love for you to come be part of our executive team. We have all men. We need some diversity, yada, yada. Same old story. I'm like, yeah. We need some guys to retire, blah, blah. So I said, okay, let's just stay in touch. And I knew I wanted to take some time off. I've never taken a summer with my kids. So I've taken this summer with my children, and it has been amazing. And so I knew I was getting close to the end of the summer. I was telling my husband, gosh, we're getting to the end of the summer. I've been talking with these larger companies all summer long. They've been, we're kind of waiting. We're checking this out, that's, that, and the other. And I've been thinking, that's the route I'm going. I'm going back to a big corporate job. I'm going to do what I know to do, lead big teams and all of this. And a week and a half ago, I got a text message. I've been praying, God, just open whatever doors you think are appropriate for me. I'm open. I'm open right now. I've decompressed now. I think I'm a recovering corporate person, and I feel like I'm on the right track. And I was at lunch with my mom. It was her birthday a week and a half ago, right before we left for vacation. And I got a text that said, Angela, this is Brad Carson. I'm the new president at TU. And our CIO just resigned, and I'd like to talk to you about that. I thought, oh. He goes, I know I don't know you, but if you would call me this afternoon, I'd love to speak with you. I said, oh, sure, I'm available between 1:30 and 3:30 today, or tomorrow between this and this, He said, good, I'll call you at 1:30. I thought, okay. Well, I was in my car. The phone call was 5 minutes, and he offered me an interim position as CIO at TU. I thought, well, that sounds kind of fun. So I said, we probably ought to meet first. And he said, okay. So I met him on Friday and shook hands, and I'm going to do that gig for a while. And I just think it's so cool. But that was God completely putting that in place. Like, I was trying to work out another plan. Like, I was going down this other track and following up on some things. God was like, we don't need you there right now. We need you right here. So it's a new opportunity, but it's all because he put that in place. I'm convinced of it. I've never taken a job so quickly. I asked him, do you need to see my resume? He said, no, we're good. Okay. So this is going to be great. Anyway, I start Tuesday. It's just crazy how, isn't that cool? I mean, but that's all God putting all that in place. But things like this happen every day to people that you just don't expect. It's when you least expect it. It's not our timing. We always are trying to work this stuff out, right? We're always trying to make it work. And I think I was trying to make the other things work. I was really like, okay, what timing are you guys it was just too hard. This one wasn't hard at all. And anyway, so it should be an exciting time. But I just share that because I think good things happen too when you wait and you trust. And I've waited a while. I've waited since March. And it's been a good wait. I mean, it's taken me a while to decompress and everything. But I think that's... it's good to realize you're more than your role and you have something to give to something else. So we'll try higher ed for a little bit, and I'll relate with Ardif for a while. All right, so that was number 2. You got to trust and you got to obey. So when he's telling you, it's time to slow down, you take some time, do that, right? He's telling you, speed up, go ahead and go for it. Do that. Trust him. Trust your gut. And number 3 is all of those women, so they called on the Lord, they trusted and obeyed, and the third thing they did is they gave God the glory. I said, thank you, Jesus. Thanks for giving that to me. I mean, you've got to stop and say thank you. I don't know what message it was John delivered, but it resonated with me, and it's been a long time ago, about saying thank you. And so I've gotten in a habit now, and it's kind of nice. Every morning I wake up, my alarm clock goes off, and my heart starts racing. Used to race a lot worse than it does now. Now I'm like, okay, I got some board meetings, no big deal. But I'll be back in the game pretty soon. But now when it goes off, my heart starts, so I think, okay, what's the day? I thought, nope, I need to stop and thank God for 3 things. So it's the first thing I do. Before I even get out of bed, I'm laying in bed, I just thank God for 3 things. Then I pop out of bed and start my day. So I think if we've talked about, for those of you who have been here before, I've talked about the happiness advantage, and there's a lot of science around being grateful and having a lot of gratitude. That changes your mindset. It changes everything. Gives you a positive attitude, gives you a good way to start the day. But if you need a way, you need to remember to say thank you, because we wouldn't be here without all of this. And that's the first thing I said as soon as I hung up the phone. I thought, thank you, Jesus. What a great deal. I mean, thank you, thank you. Psalm 115:1 says, not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name give glory for the sake of your steadfast love and your faithfulness. That's a game changer when you can be grateful. And even when you're going through difficult times, it changes your mindset. We used to, in one of my teams, we had talent acquisition and leadership and some other stuff. And we would start all of our staff meetings with what I called the happiness advantage. And everyone had to go around and say at least one positive thing. And there were some days we had to dig deep. Like I remember one day, one lady, she was having a horrible day. And she's like, the grass is green. I was like, woo, that's a little rough. That was her only happy thing she could think of. But when it forces you to think positively, it changes your mindset. It changes your whole day, really. I mean, there's going to be times when you're having some bad days. We all have terrible days. When we were driving all night home because we couldn't find a rental car, when you're all kinds, you're going to have some bad days. Switch your mindset. Think about 2 or 3 things that make you happy, that you're grateful for, because he gives that all to us. So that's the third thing. They gave God the glory. The fourth thing is, this is really important. And this is really why we're here tonight. We're going to talk about Little Black Dress. But brave women pay it forward. They lift other women up. There is so much. Yes, amen, sister. She knows. There is so much. It's interesting, especially in the corporate world, it's an interesting dynamic with women because they want to get ahead. There's not a lot of places, not a lot of space for women, typically on teams, and it gets kind of competitive. But the most successful women lift others up. And it doesn't matter if you're in the corporate world or the regular world, whatever world you're in, whatever environment you're in, brave women pay it forward, right? Have you ever driven through a drive-thru where someone's paid for your drink or something? You're like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I'll pay for the next person. Yeah, and they keep it going. There's been a lot of cool things like that, but it changes your day. Have you had a mentor or someone close to you that gave you advice when you need it the most? They pay it forward. Those mentor women, I just had one today. I had a lady, I spoke at a women's group a few weeks ago, and it was a group of students, and one of the ladies came up afterwards and said, can we go to lunch? I was like, sure. So we met this morning, and she's a senior in college and asking a lot of questions. But I had women that poured in my life, and so I try to do that same thing. And that's the same with you guys. Every one of you in this room have something to give to another lady, another female. We are really powerful when we stick together. It's pretty amazing. Luke 6:38 says, give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you see it, it will be measured back to you. So what he's telling us is, you give to others, it's going to be given back to you. And you find that so often when you give. I know a lot of times we talk about tithing and that type of thing and giving back. You see that so often, like, gosh, we just did this, and now it's come back to me in this great way. It's amazing how it comes full circle. Proverbs 11:25 says, generosity will be rewarded. Give a cup of water, and you'll receive a cup of water in return. I had the opportunity at TU because my mentor sits on the board of directors there, and I was her CIO, and she knows how I work. She knew who to call. And she told the new president about me. He trusted her, and he gave me the opportunity without even seeing my resume. It was because I had a mentor, a sponsor, who has been looking out for me. That's why. And that's what we do for other women. That's what we do for other women. We know, oh, we got an opening here. Okay, I know somebody, you need some help. You're moving this weekend, I can help you. Oh my gosh, you need some help running kids around. Yep, you need some baking stuff. You want to do second Sunday lunch? I mean, women, that's just kind of our second nature. We help others. And then when we help each other, we're stronger together. And I think that's what's so great about the women in the Bible, too. They all did this beautifully, right? And we continue to do it. Now, so paying it forward is really an opportunity. It's a cycle to support somebody. You were at Little Black Dress many years ago, right? She's always coming back. You're always here. You're paying it forward now. You're participating and volunteering. And see that cycle? And that's how we lift each other up, right? It's so cool. Before we move on, because I wanted to mix a little bit of a business book in with you, because I think we have just a few minutes. But has anybody heard of Amy Cuddy? Because she's really fantastic. She is a psychologist, best-selling author, Harvard lecturer, or whatever, and she talks about behavior science around power, presence, and prejudice. And she's famous for her concept of power posing. So I think this is the lethal combo right here: prayer and a power pose. So we're going to practice one real quick. I swear I do this. I had an offsite with my team, and we all did this power pose for like 2 minutes. It was awesome. So anyway, Amy Cuddy, if you can Google her, she has a ton of really great YouTube videos and TED Talks. She's fabulous. And she got some scrutiny on this topic because they were thinking that it wasn't really well researched or whatever, but I think she's come back and kind of proven herself. Regardless, it's worked for me, so I'm a believer. But she talks about this concept of power posing. I'll show you. She calls it a life hack. And she says, no one ever wants to be remembered as an excellent bystander, but who doesn't want to be remembered as brave? I just think that's so great. But what she talks about is being big. And so if you're ever getting ready to go into a situation and you want to feel bigger or feel more confident, the science that she's done has proven that it lowers your cortisol, so the stress hormone, and it increases your testosterone a little bit. So you'll notice in meetings, especially in corporate meetings, guys will come in and spread out all their stuff and kind of take a pose and lean back and be big. So I started doing that same thing, not that like that, but I started taking in all my stuff during the meetings, in our executive meetings. I spread out all my papers and my computer and my laptop really big, wear my highest heels. It was awesome. But if everyone will stand up just real quick, we're going to do a quick power pose. I'm going to show you the best one, I think, is the Wonder Woman pose, just like this. And they say if you look up, and see, to me, this is a great time. If you stood here and said a prayer just like this, prayer and power pose, that's a lethal combo, ladies. I'm just saying. They say hold that for 1 to 2 minutes right before you're going into a big meeting, a big speech, whatever. Go in the bathroom and do it. You don't have to do it in the hallway or whatever right outside the meeting room. You're like, what's happening with Angela? I don't know. But this is one of those poses that gets you feeling bigger and more confident. It's supposed to lower your stress level and increase your testosterone. Isn't that fun? Just a fun little pointer. So you can sit down now, but anyway, so we've talked about being brave today. We talked about, first of all, we're going to call on the Lord. Secondly, we're going to trust and we're going to obey him. Thirdly, we're going to give him the glory. We're going to say, thank you, God. Thank you for giving us this opportunities. And then we're going to pay it forward, which is really the most important part. Okay, and then on this little sheet, which I'm not super creative, but I tried to come up with a few things. What I put on here is you're never going to regret being brave. You're never going to regret that. And I put some songs that really resonate with me. They may or may not be your songs, but they're really good ones if you haven't heard them, to look them up and listen to them. And I've included a few of the Bible verses that if you just need a quick Bible verse to jot to, having one of those days like, oh gosh, I'm getting ready to go to a meeting, I'm not really sure, or I've got to face this parent or this situation, check out one of those. Those are all really encouraging verses. And then here are some questions for you to reflect on. What's the bravest thing God has asked you to do, and how can you use that testimony? So think about, there's a lot of things that everyone in this room has been through. Think about that brave thing, where you got your strength from, God, and how you can use that to help others that might be going through the same thing. Or if you have to be brave in another situation, remember that. Remember those qualities. Hey, I did that. I can totally do this. I kicked cancer's butt. I can totally do that. That's no problem. I had someone tell me something the other day. I said, oh, it's nothing compared to chemo. I got that. No problem. So you'll have that in your mindset. And then ask yourself, are you doing what's right or just what's easy? That's a good question. Was I just going back to corporate because that was easy, because that was what I knew? Or I'm going to do what's right, do something fun for me for a change. Are you chasing perfection or focus on progression? That's a great one. Nobody's perfect. Are you wasting time trying to get to perfection when you really should be progressing at something else? Who's your personal board of directors? Ought to work on that if you haven't done so already. What brave characteristics do you need to work on? Are there some things that you need to work on, being more courageous or fearless? And then how can you support and lift other women up? I think we're going to find out a little bit more about that. So we can be certain we've got to trust in him. He always has our backs. Every weakness we have is an opportunity for God to show his strength in your life. Every weakness. Man, I've got a lot of those. And we are much braver than we give ourselves credit for. Much braver. Well, I hope you were able to take a few notes tonight. Just got a few tidbits, but we're excited to kick off our little black dress event planning. This event's one that's going to challenge our bravery. We have to get braver and braver every year, which is really exciting. We're getting bolder and we're making an impact, ladies. That's what's so cool about this event. This is our opportunity to give back, to lift women up, and to make a difference in this community. So as we close this message, You Make Me Brave is one of my very favorite songs. I listen to that every single chemo session I went to. And so Deanna's going to sing it with us tonight. I think we might have the words, but let those words resonate with you. And if you've got a difficult day, that'd be something I would pull out and listen to. Might help you. Thanks so much for having me tonight. I appreciate it. Is that okay?
I stand before you now, as your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way as your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in.
Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your love that gives us everything we need to be brave and to walk into the calling that you have on our lives. God, we love you so much. And God, thank you for every woman in this room, and thank you for what you're about to do through each and every one of them. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, if we had a sub-theme to the Little Black Dress event, I think it would be brave. Every single year, I at some point in the event, I say, because you love me, I can be brave. And I'm saying that to most of the people in the crowd, but I'm usually saying that to myself, because walking up on the stage, I'm always shaking and scared to even enter into that role. But I think about, even as we are about to go into our Little Black Dress launch party, as I think about the story of the Little Black Dress from our very first year till now, this is our 10-year anniversary. It is a story of bravery, because the very first, it's kind of funny. My husband and I were visiting a church, and I think it was our second time at the church. We were brand new anyway. And the pastor at the time said, in the middle of his message, he just made a one-liner where he said, you know, there are a lot of hurting women in our community. And I remember the Lord just dropping on my heart saying, you need to do something about that. And I kind of laughed for a couple of reasons, because one, I had always just done youth and young adult ministry, and I was like, I don't really know how to do anything about that. And the second reason was like, I wasn't really a part of a church yet, so I was like, what am I supposed to do? Just go up to him and say, I'm the one that's supposed to do that. Sign me up. And he was like, who are you? So I remember thinking it was kind of funny that God was calling me to that. We walked out of church that day, and I said something to my husband. He goes, yep, you're supposed to do something about that. He's like, go talk to the pastor. I'm like, I don't know him. And anyway, a few months later, I sat on it for a while. A few months later, I was on an airplane, and I was flying home to visit family and go to an event, and I was reading my Bible, and I read Colossians 3, and it said, put on love, your all-purpose garment, never be without it. And all of a sudden, all of these things from that church service that day when God said, you need to do something about hurting women, it all started coming together, and I started writing it all down. And I remember being so scared to even ask anyone to be a part of it, because I didn't know how we were going to do it, what it was going to look like, how we were going to get a team. I didn't know hardly any people. And our first event, we had like 80 people at it with a small group of us. And all we did was ask around. We're like, hey, do you want to come be a part of this? And it was like our first crew. Raise your hands. The 5 of us. Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Everybody signed up to bring finger food. Yes, it was crazy, but it's funny because I think Larissa is the one who said LBD when she said, what's something brave? And if you haven't seen, I want you all to see, we have our very first Little Black Dress magazine, and this magazine kind of goes through our story of the Little Black Dress, but we have one called Brave Love, and I highlighted Larissa. in it because the very first event, Larissa did exactly what Angela was saying. She just was like, okay, God, whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to do it. And she ended up doing a whole bunch. She had to be a model. She had to be and she was like, I'm only modeling if someone can go in front of me. But she did a whole bunch, and she's been a part of it ever since. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of these things like the magazine in a minute. But we're about to go into the back for all the details on how you all can be involved in the Little Black Dress event. We're also going to have door prizes. We're going to have opportunity this is pajamas that I'm wearing. This is our You Are Loved, our first ever pajama shirt of the Little Black Dress event, kind of inspired by one year, one of the testimonies, one of the ladies from our event, she called me the next day and told me that she slept in her dress. And she said, I just did not want to lose that feeling that I had that night of being loved. So I slept in my dress. So now we have one you can sleep in comfortably. This is our pajama dress. But we're going to have all those details in a minute in the back. But just a little reminder, maybe that some of you are new and don't know a lot about the Little Black Dress event, or just a reminder because it's been 2 years since we've had the event. We're going to watch this video real quick as a reminder.
Welcome to the Little Black Dress event. We are so excited that you decided to spend the evening with us. I promise you, you will not regret it. It will be one of the greatest nights of your life.
My name is Paula French, and I am the founder and director of the Little Black Dress event. The mission of the Little
All right, we're about to go to the back, but first I want you to see all the information that you're going to need and that we're going to go over in the back is found on Facebook, okay? So if you have not yet liked us on Facebook, go on facebook.com, lbd.wearlove, okay? That is at the top of the page. You know, you can pin a post, and all of the links for everything we're going to talk about are there. So like our post, like our page, follow it, because as you have questions and things are updated, it's all going to be there, all right? So see that? lbd.wearlove. Are you finding it? Have you found it? All right, raise your hand when you have liked our page so you know where to get your information. All right, we're going to go. I'm going to release this pajama dress as one of them. All right, we'll see you back there.